I spend way too much time thinking about why someone on a genuinely good salary today can still feel like they're one bad month away from trouble. If you're someone who's doing fine on paper and still feels quietly unsettled about money, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Here's the thing. There used to be a deal. Work hard, get a decent job, earn a decent salary, and security followed automatically. A house eventually, a pension at the end of it, enough of a buffer that a bad month didn't become a bad year. That deal is broken. Not because people got worse with money, because the things that used to come bundled with a good salary, a home, a pension, a buffer, have quietly detached from it. This isn't a video about how everything is hopeless. It's not a generational blame video either. This isn't boomers had it easy, and it's not millennials just want too much. It's about a structural shift that happened over about 30 years, mostly invisible while it was happening, and it explains a feeling a lot of people have and can't quite name. Let's name it. In 1995, the average UK house cost around 4 times the average earnings. 4 times. If you earned a normal salary, buying a home wasn't a stretch goal. It was just what people did in their late 20s. Today, that ratio is over 8 times earnings nationally. In London, it's more than 12. The house hasn't just gotten more expensive. Its relationship to your salary has fundamentally changed. The same effort, the same career, the same discipline buys roughly half the house it used to relative to what you earn. Here's the maths on what that actually means day to day. Nationwide's own data shows the average UK first-time buyer needs about 6 years to save a 10% deposit. In London, that stretches past 9. And that's the fast version. Deeper research from the Home Builders Federation found that after covering rent and bills, the average first-time buyer in England would need to save half of everything left over for 9 years to get there. In London and the South East, that's over 13 years. 13 years of saving half your spare income to reach the starting line. That's not a story about people making budgeting mistakes. That's a story about the house and the salary going in 2 completely different directions. Here's a piece of the old deal that gets talked about even less: the pension. 20 years ago, around half of UK employees in work had access to what's called a defined benefit pension, sometimes called final salary. The way it worked was simple. Your employer promised you a guaranteed income in retirement, calculated from your salary and how long you'd worked there. The investment risk sat with the employer. If the stock market had a bad decade, that was the company's problem, not yours. You just showed up and a specific number arrived every month for the rest of your life. Today, that's down to about 1/3 of employees. For new joiners specifically, it's almost gone from the private sector entirely. Only 4% of these schemes are even open to new members anymore. Almost everyone now is on what's called defined contribution. You and your employer put money in, it gets invested, and whatever's in the pot when you retire is what you get. If markets do well, you benefit. If they don't, you bear that too. The risk didn't disappear. It just moved from the company's balance sheet onto yours, quietly, without anyone really announcing it. So the 2 biggest pillars of what used to make a decent salary feel secure, a realistic path to owning a home and a guaranteed retirement income, have both shifted from something that happened for you to something you now have to build yourself, at your own risk, with your own money. That's not a small change. That's the entire architecture of financial security getting rebuilt underneath people while they were busy going to work. Here's the number that ties it together. Since 2000, real UK wages, adjusted for inflation, what your salary actually buys, have grown by about 16% over roughly a quarter of a century. That's the good news, such as it is. In that same period, UK housing costs grew by around 267%. Read that gap again. Wages up 16, housing up 267. It's not that your salary went backwards, it's that everything security actually requires went up roughly 16 times faster than the thing that's supposed to buy it. And it's not just housing. Childcare in the UK is now among the most expensive in the developed world. For some parents, it consumes 30 to 45% of a single parent's entire wage, a bill that barely existed in that form a generation ago. Student debt has gone from around £3,000 for a typical graduate in 2000 to roughly £53,000 today, meaning a large share of the workforce start their careers with a structural deduction from their pay before they've even been paid once. None of these individually would be a crisis. Stacked together over the same 30 years, they explain something that used to feel like a mystery. Why a good salary in 2026 buys noticeably less peace of mind than a more modest salary did in 1995. I want to be careful here, because this is the point where a lot of videos on this topic go wrong in one of two directions. It's not "you're bad with money." Every stat in this video is about structural forces, housing supply, pension policy, wage stagnation, that operate completely independently of how carefully any individual person manages their finances. You cannot budget your way to a 4-times salary house price when the market's actually running at 8 times. That's not a discipline problem. That's a maths problem the household can't solve alone. It's also not older generations had it easy and don't understand. Most people who bought a house in 1995 weren't reckless or lucky. They were operating inside a system that happened to work differently. The point of this video isn't to relitigate who had it better. It's to understand what actually changed, so you can respond to the world as it is now, not the one your parents navigated. And to be honest with you, this video is not going to fix the housing market. I can't hand you a lower house price to earnings ratio. I can't restore your access to a final salary pension. Those are structural, and they need actual policy solutions that are well outside what any one household can solve by itself. What I can do is explain what this actually means for how you build security now, given the world as it is. If security no longer arrives bundled with your salary, the honest conclusion is that it has to be built as its own separate project, deliberately, not automatically. That means 3 things, and none of them are complicated, even if none of them is easy. 1. The emergency fund isn't optional anymore. When your job was your safety net and your pension was guaranteed, a personal buffer mattered less. Now that both of those have shifted risk onto you, a genuine emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of essential costs, is doing work your employer used to do for you. It's not a nice to have. It's the replacement for a safety net that used to exist by default. 2. Your pension needs active attention, not passive faith. If you're on a defined contribution pension, and statistically you almost certainly are, nobody is guaranteeing your outcome. That means checking your contribution rate, checking where it's actually invested, and understanding that the number in that account at 65 is a direct consequence of decisions you make now, not something that happens automatically in the background. 3. Wealth building for investing has to replace what home equity used to provide. For decades, a huge part of UK household wealth building happened automatically, just by owning a home that appreciated. If home ownership arrives later, or not at all, for a meaningful chunk of this generation, the alternative isn't nothing. It's deliberate investing in things like a stocks and shares ISA, done consistently over decades. It won't replicate exactly what home ownership used to do, but it's the closest available substitute, and it's the one lever that's still fully within your control, regardless of what the housing market does. Here's what I actually want you to take from this. Your salary was never going to be the thing that kept you secure. It used to look that way because security used to be bundled in. The house, the pension, all quietly included in "get a decent job." But that bundle has come apart, and it's not coming back together the way it was. Security was never really about the number on your payslip. It's built separately, on purpose, or it isn't built at all. That's not a comforting sentence, but it's an honest one. And it comes with an actual instruction. Stop waiting for your salary to feel secure on its own eventually. It won't. Build the security deliberately alongside it, starting with whatever you can control this month. That's the whole thing. So, here's what I want to know in the comments. When did you first notice the gap? The moment you realised a good salary wasn't automatically translating into feeling secure. I'm genuinely curious how many people can point to a specific moment that made it click. If this helped, hit like and subscribe if you're not already. Proper Pence puts out UK-focused personal finance videos every week. See you in the next one.